Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending on when you're joining us from. I'm currently actually calling in from Ireland, so it's evening time for me. But you're all incredibly welcome to Startup Global's first Industry Advisory Circle of 2024 for retail and consumer packaged goods. I'm Isabel Nolan. I'm the program manager for the Startup Women and Startup Global programs at Startup Canada. To begin, although I am currently in Ireland, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which Startup Canada was founded is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous people. I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you're residing on today. A little bit about Startup Canada, if you're not familiar with us. We're a national nonprofit that's the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're here to connect entrepreneurs with the support, community, and tools that they need to build a successful business in Canada. Since launching in 2012, we've grown to support more than 130,000 entrepreneurs annually and an ever-growing community of ecosystem partners from coast to coast to coast. Startup Global is one of Startup Canada's flagship programs that supports entrepreneurs looking to export and expand their businesses internationally. From webinars to export readiness resources, industry advisory circles just like this, and exclusive offerings from our partners, this free program will help you build an international market entry strategy and plan. These monthly industry advisory circles are hoping to provide attendees with a deeper understanding of trends and best practices in their sector and leave with actionable takeaways and resources that they can implement into their business. So I'd first like to introduce Felipe. He is the marketing manager for small business at UPS Canada. UPS Canada are a long-standing partner of Startup Canada. And yeah, Felipe, I'll pass it over to you to share a few words about UPS.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you for the warm introduction and invitation to join you all today. My name is Felipe Sarquez. As Isabel said, I'm the marketing manager for small businesses at UPS Canada. I'm so looking forward to today's industry advisory circle because I love talking retail. It's never boring. Customer expectations are always changing. There's no limit when tapping into global markets. And new technology not only improves customer service, but it's also available to everyone. The world of retail is constantly bending and shifting. What's hot at this moment, what's not. And you can get into customer hands before it goes out of style. But the most important question may be, is your retail supply chain limber enough to keep up? If you are in consumer goods, apparel, or any retail business, you don't just manage logistics for a group of products. You manage the expectations of a group of demanding customers. But more than that, those in retail also need to look at several points as accessing new global markets, managing seasonality, improving inventory and order accuracy, reaching customers faster and on Saturday with lower shipping costs, fulfilling e-commerce orders efficiently, turning returns into an advantage, improving checkout, and getting customers back to your website to order more. There is no doubt that this is a long list. And while the right shipping partner can help you with all of it, the insight that you will get today from our panel of entrepreneurs will be invaluable. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I hope you enjoyed this session. And please know that no matter if you are a seasoned business or just getting started, UPS is here to help with a discount on shipping, support from a UPS ambassador team, and so much more. Thank you for your attention, and let's get started.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Felipe. I appreciate you being here as well today. Along with UPS, I'd like to thank our other co-presenting partner, Export Development Canada, as well as our program partners, Forum for International Trade Training, also known as FITT, and our community of ecosystem partners, and we'll share a full list of who they are in our Zoom chat. So as I said, today's session is for retail and consumer packaged goods, and we're very excited to dive into the conversation. If you haven't been to one of these sessions before, I'll let you know sort of what to expect over the next 2 or so hours. I already see that there are many people that have turned on their cameras, and that's wonderful. We strive for this to be, conversational and informal. We want you to get to know each other as well as the speakers. So if you are comfortable with it, please feel free to put your camera on, and we can all kind of get to know each other a little bit today. So in a few minutes, I'll actually hand it over to our attendees to do a quick introduction of themselves. So you can either do this by being on camera, or you can do it via the chat, whatever you're more comfortable with. If you do have your camera on, I'll assume that you're okay with introducing yourself on camera. But this is a nice safe space for everyone. So, introduce yourself, let us know where you're calling in from, maybe a quick sentence or two about your business, or what you're expecting to get out of today's session. And also feel free to put your LinkedIn bio into the chat, your website, connect with each other. That's why we're here. And then we'll move on to our 2 entrepreneur expert talks. They'll be speaking for about 5 minutes each, talking about their journey within this space, and also more importantly, how they went beyond the Canadian market and got into different markets with their products. And then we'll open it up to a panel discussion for about an hour. We do have questions drafted out, but like I said, we're here for the attendees today. So if you have any questions at all, we will take priority. And you can also do this by coming on camera, asking it yourself, or if you're more comfortable, by putting it in the chat and we can ask on your behalf. The final segment will be our breakout room. So this is intentional breakout networking. We'll do about 3 or 4 of these total for a collective of about 20 to 25 minutes. We'll put a prompt question into the chat, but this is really for you to get to know each other. Perhaps there's a question that you wanted to work through that you weren't comfortable sharing in the panel discussion, but maybe you'll feel more comfortable in those smaller group sessions. And they're completely private as well. They're not recorded. Alrighty, so we will get started with our attendee questions, or introductions, I should say. So the first person here, I have Farhan.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. And yeah, should I introduce myself or should I?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a new grad. I'm looking into the retail and consumer space. So I'm just excited to be here and just learn more about the new entrepreneurs and like all the industry specialists. So just here to learn. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming. Next, there is Carol.
Hi, my name is Carol Hull. I'm a business and technology consultant, and I've recently launched a new retail venture, and am not at all familiar with the retail space. So, like Farhan, I'm here to learn as much as possible and take in all the wisdom and knowledge from everyone. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Roberge. I'm in Montreal, and I have 2 brands. So one is a sustainable pet product company. We make plush toys from hemp and organic cotton and things like that. And that's new. And I have a brand called Your Naturals that's been around since 2019, and we're in natural skincare for eczema and psoriasis. And things have changed a lot since that brand, and now I have my new pet brand, and so I'm trying to figure out kind of like how to keep up with the times. So I wanted to learn from everybody, see what everyone was doing. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jennifer. And Angela.
I was just taking notes on Jennifer, so you caught me off guard. My name's Angela. I go by Ange. I'm based in Toronto. I've worked in the CPG space for over a decade. I lead a boutique brokerage, so we drive retail and distribution wholesale strategy for CPG brands. We've done 3X in 3 years, export 50% of services to the US from Canada, and have proudly served over 95% women-owned and diverse-owned businesses. So just happy to be connected to the community and learn about your brands and businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Angela. The next one, there's no name, but it says Samsung SM. If you know that's you in a maroon shirt.
I think that might be me.
Perhaps. Yeah, off you go.
Sorry. Hi, my name's Vendia, and we have a brand called Afrobeat Snacks, and so we do manufacturing of in African-inspired snacks such as kettle chips, beef jerky. We're coming out with plantain chips and tropical drinks and stuff like that. We're just looking to here to learn and you know, see if there's any, you know, stuff that we don't know, because knowledge is power.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Laura.
Hi, everyone. Laura Rigudo. I am with the Forum for International Trade Training, or FITT. So we are a program partner for Startup Global, as Isabel mentioned. So FITT, just a little brief intro. FITT is the global leader in international trade training and certification of international trade professionals. So I always love to take part in these sessions because I learn from entrepreneurs. Although we have the curriculum and the programs to train entrepreneurs to go global, it's always great to hear what some of the challenges are and see how we can address that with the resources that we provide and incorporate some of that in our international trade training.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining, Laura. Justine.
Hi, my name's Justine. I live in North Vancouver, BC. I started a luxury handbag line, and I just want to learn about shipping and things for it. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I'm sure Felipe from UPS can definitely give you a few pointers there for sure. So we'll certainly be covering that aspect of the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Katie, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
How's that?
Hi, we can hear you. Hi.
Okay, how are you?
Great, how are you doing?
Good. I'm just my business is Klondike Kettle Corn, and I'm up in Whitehorse, Yukon, but I'm just down in Vancouver this weekend for CHFA, just walking the floor and meeting some new people. But I wanted to hop on here still. We're looking to get our products into Alaska, and so starting to gradually export globally.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining, Katie.
Thanks.
Thanks. And Sarah Delaney.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah. I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm a retail business consultant. So I work with small and medium-sized independent retailers to help them kind of calm their chaos and be a little bit better, sleep a little bit better, and make more money. So.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining, Sarah. Is there anyone else that wants to kind of raise their hand and introduce themselves on camera? You can feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like. Otherwise, we can do that on chat. I'll give people a little bit more time. Michael, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, good morning. My name is Michael Burgess. I run a company called Nerpies Inc. We're in the consumer packaged goods business. I make a line of hot sauces and seasonings. So we sell them into grocery stores and independent retailers across Ontario. And we're also in the food service space. So we do some of our products for restaurants, caterers, and stuff like that. So I want to come on here and see what connections I can make, and also what valuable insights I can also make. So hopefully looking for some good learning in here today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining, Michael.
Thank you.
All right. If there's anyone else that would like to come on camera, we have a few more minutes to do so. Otherwise, you're welcome to introduce yourself through the chat, which I already see many people are adding their information in there. So thank you so much. Yeah, I have someone, Chanakya.
Thank you. So I apologize. I am on my phone, and I'm walking, so it might be a little bit choppy. But I'm based out of Waterloo, and I run two startups. One is a textile startup where we make clothes, and we were the ones who made face coverings for Government of Canada, Government of Ontario, and Metrolinx. If you ever have used GoBus or GoTrain. And the project that I'm working on, which is the reason I'm running, is we started a telecom company. So you might be aware, next week there is a solar eclipse and millions of people are descending to Niagara Falls. So what we provide is backup telecom on your phone. So right now your phone, whichever carrier you use, will only connect to that carrier. But what we've built is a way where your phone can connect to any carrier anywhere in the world. So it acts as backup during outages. It also helps you prevent paying roaming fees if you're ever traveling overseas. So textiles and telecom, that's what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining. All right, last calls for introductions before we kind of get started with today's session. If there's anyone else that wants to introduce themselves on camera. We good? All righty. Well, thank you all for coming on, either to introduce yourself on camera or introducing yourself in the chat. It really helps to kind of break the ice with everyone, so we all know who's in the room, and we can get more comfortable with asking questions with each other. So I would love to introduce you to today's speakers. And speakers, when I say your name, maybe you can just give a little bit of a wave so that the attendees know who you are. So today we have Evelyne Nyairo. She is the founder of Ellie Bianca. We've got Gavin Armstrong, founder and CEO of Lucky Iron Life. And we have Monique Benoit, Chief Advisor at SoFull Creations. Thank you very much, speakers, for joining in today. You're all joining from various different parts of Canada and the States as well. So very grateful that you're here today. We are going to kick off with our expert talk. So Gavin, I'm going to pass the torch over to you to kind of tell us a little bit about your journey into this space.
Thank you very much. And hi, everyone. It's great to see you. I hope where you are, you're staying dry or warm. I'm Gavin Armstrong. I'm the founder and CEO of Lucky Iron Life, formerly Lucky Iron Fish. We are a Canadian social enterprise dedicated to eliminating iron deficiency around the world using socially conscious business practices. Iron deficiency is the world's largest nutritional challenge. It negatively impacts the lives of about 2 billion people around the planet. It's just about a third of the world's population. And though it can impact anyone, it does mainly impact women and children and those living in poverty. And the main solutions for iron deficiency are mainly iron supplement pills, which are effective, but iron supplement pills can be expensive. You have to take them every day, and they can not be the greatest on your body. If you've taken them before, you might have experienced some pretty nasty side effects. So during my time at the University of Guelph, I did a PhD in biomedical science and helped develop this, which is the Lucky Iron Fish. So it's a cooking tool that when you boil it for 10 minutes, it will release 6 to 8 milligrams of iron into your meal. It doesn't change the taste, color, or smell of the liquid it's cooked in, and it can be reused every day by the entire household for up to 5 years. So it's a much more sustainable and cost-effective alternative to those traditional iron supplements. When I was doing the PhD research in Cambodia, we were using an iron disc. And though the disc was scientifically effective, women said it looked like garbage that we found on the side of the road, and they didn't want to cook with it. They thought we were crazy for asking them to do that. So it was not working. But after some research, we discovered that a symbol of a fish is a symbol of luck in Cambodian culture. So shaped the disc like a fish, and then women wanted to use it because they thought it would bring luck to their household. And then when they felt healthier, they said, oh, it's the luck of the fish that's making me not have headaches, but I'm not fainting anymore. It really is a lucky fish. And so that's where the name Lucky Iron Fish comes from. And I actually was doing educational requirements for my degree. I was speaking at a conference in the UK just about the work we were doing. And after my talk, I had a lineup of people saying, I have iron deficiency. I hate my current solutions. Do you have any on you? Can I buy some? And that's when I realized there could be a global business here. So came back to Guelph and commercialized it. We started selling in 2016. So now in 2024, we're in over 90 countries. We've sold over 350,000 units, helping improve the lives of about 1.2 million people around the world. We're a certified B Corporation or a benefit corporation, which I'd be happy to talk about later. And yeah, that's pretty much the journey, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Gavin. And I actually wasn't familiar with the sort of starting point of the name and all of that. So that was really wonderful to share. Thank you so much. All right, the next expert talk or entrepreneur talk that we'll have is from Evelyne. So Evelyne, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for everyone for being here. I started Ellie Bianca in 2015, and it's just sort of happened by, I say I'm on a spiritual journey. I don't know how we got here, but it's a spiritual journey. I used to be in oil and gas. I am a biochemist by training. And while in those trips, while in Africa building pipelines, I was asked to actually pay the husband when it's the woman who had done all the work. And I thought, I need to do something. This happens even in Canada. So I need to ignite conversations around, gender inequalities. And what is the better way to do that? Let's create some skincare so that, the women can benefit, especially the farmers that source the ingredients, but at the same time, build a product that is cleaner, sustainable, and also just actually solve some of my own personal problems as well. I mean, as you know, now there's a lot more products in the market, but I remember days when I had to purchase products from the US. I still purchase my toothpaste from Europe. Up to today. So we launched in 2015, 2016, starting off basically with a lip balm. My daughter said, Mommy, if we can sell 1 million lip balms, we'll be able to help 1 million women in Africa. Well, we're still working on that. Today we have about 40 some SKUs that range from face care, body care, and of course, like during the pandemic, we did sanitizers, hand soaps, and that line continues to grow. Our products are sold in about 1,500, I'll say, stores across Canada, including some of our larger retailers like Whole Foods. We launched last year with Costco.ca and expanding. Safeway, Sobeys line carries our products and so many of those. So cleaner products that truly are kind to your skin, kind to the earth, and kind to women. And we've been expanding into other parts of the world as well. Yeah, so happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing your journey, Evelyne. So I think there was a few people that just joined while we had Gavin and Evelyne speaking. So you're very welcome to today's session. We're going to move into our panel discussion segment of today. And just to remind everyone, we have a bunch of questions that we've drafted, but very much would love to hear from the attendees. So if you have a question, we'll 100% prioritize your questions over ours. So you can either use the raise hand function and come on camera and ask your question, or you can ask in the Q&A box and we'll ask on your behalf. So I'll reiterate that a few times because I do want people to feel comfortable to ask their questions and have, if there's a problem that they need solved today, I'd really love to work towards that for you. So I'll say that a few times, but I can maybe start off by introducing our third speaker, Monique. And so Monique, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and SoFull Creations.
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm based out of Detroit, Michigan, so quite close to Toronto, but I know most other folks are not based here in the US, but happy to be here. I came to retail as career number 3, but joined Target as a retail buyer back in 2015. From being a buyer at Target, I went on to be a buyer at Anthropologie. And just in case folks don't know, Target is a mass retailer in the US that sells a variety of items, including branded products from very big CPGs and also including products from independent brands. I then went to Anthropologie, which is known as being a home and lifestyle retailer. Over there, I bought things in the home area. At Target, I bought things in stationery, also in the healthcare departments. I then went on to a brokerage. In between that works with independent brands and retailers and sold brands into Ulta Beauty. And I also consulted with Ulta Beauty as part of SoFull Creations with their accelerator program, just advising those brands on pitching to retail and some of the things that they might not know, answering those questions that they don't necessarily want to ask the retailers. So happy to be here. I work with brands on go-to-market strategy, brand foundations, and really helping them to build the foundation necessary to have sustainable growth at retail with SoFull Creations. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thanks, Monique. So yes, between our 3 speakers, there's a wealth of knowledge across this space. So you're definitely in the right room if you have any questions at all for your business. So I think maybe to start off the conversation, and this is to all of our speakers, for entrepreneurs who haven't yet started exporting, can you each highlight, maybe a key benefit to exporting? Why should they be considering exporting? And maybe what are the reasons for our entrepreneur speakers that you decided to enter into a new market? Evelyne, maybe I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing for me was, we want to build a $1 billion brand at Ellie Bianca. So when I looked at my numbers, the population of Canada is similar to the population of California. So it makes sense to expand. We don't have population, big part, we don't have enough. Secondly, when I look at, especially I'm from Africa, as we're launching our skincare brand and putting it out there, customers also ask for it. Our friends in the US started asking for it. So automatically we knew that we needed to sell outside of Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Expand the market and increase your potential to grow for sure. Gavin, how about you? What was a key reason for you to start exporting?
Yeah, thanks. And maybe I should step back actually and explain how we sell the Lucky Ironfish. So we sell it through 2 main channels. We do have e-commerce where it's available online in over 90 countries. And if you buy one for yourself, we take a portion of that sale and put it towards donating a unit for free to a family in need around the world. But we also do large volume sales to NGOs like Action Against Hunger, Care International, and they run programs around the world and communities where they're running nutrition intervention programs. So I guess when we started to export, we did it in 2 very different ways. There was the e-com, and that was because demand was growing and we saw an opportunity for it. So we started just in the United States, like Canada, US, for selling from our website, and then eventually grew it from there. But when it came to the really challenging markets and the really international ones, that was at the request of these NGOs. So like Care would come to us and say, we want to run a program in Guatemala, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire. Let's create a program together. And so they kind of chose the markets that we went into. We picked the main partners we wanted to have, but they identified the demographics. And the thing that we learned about from both is definitely making sure you have the capacity to grow to meet that demand. Just cash requirements to manage inventory and all the kind of added expenses and unexpected costs that come with it, because they can really add up. And if you're not ready, I think it's really difficult to recover from making a mistake. versus just having everything be really prepared in advance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great point about, export readiness, and we'll definitely get into that as well in terms of how you can assess if you are ready to export. But yeah, thank you, Evelyne, Gavin. And Monique, anything to add there in terms of benefits to entering a new market for these brands?
I think one, it kind of piggybacks off of what Evelyne shared and just wanting to build $1 billion brand, but it's profitability. For many brands, expanding or exporting into different countries, continents, if you will, really helps them to expand their opportunities for profitability. We all know supply and demand and how those equations work. So naturally, as your supply increases, right, you're able to typically reduce your costs for your basic COGS. And so that can very much help your profitability if you are looking at expanding and going to other places or just building a more profitable brand.
Absolutely. And Gavin and Evelyne, sort of jumping back to that export readiness part, can you maybe each talk about what that looked like for you? So, what did the process look like for you assessing, okay, this is what we need to do to get export ready, and then kind of how you actioned that, I guess. Maybe Gavin, I'll go to you first.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we had to make sure we had the capital to actually handle carrying that much inventory and trying to forecast, what sales would be. And we learned that no matter how conservative your forecasts are, they typically come in under. So it does take, we want to be $1 billion brand too. It's taking us a lot longer than we thought it would. So it's just having that runway where to make sure that you can handle those unexpected delays. And for us, and I know we'll talk about some legal stuff later, but Lucky Iron Fish is regulated very differently in different markets. And so we have to understand the legal requirements as we go into a new country. And that prompts delays and more money and consultants and legal fees and things like that. So it's really making sure you can pay for it. We actually also tried to export into retailers. One of the great things about our product for the consumer is that it's reusable for 5 years, like I mentioned. It's not great for a retailer because they want to have people coming in weekly to buy it. And so we actually found our products were sitting on shelves, and then we had to pay to have them come back. And so we've really pulled out of retail and wholesale and have just focused on the e-commerce part of the business.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's definitely like a lesson learned, I think, for yourselves. And Evelyne, how about you? What was the process like assessing your readiness to export?
Yeah, so I really have to say, it took a lot because coming from oil and gas, totally new industry, there was a lot that I had to learn, and it's really and investing to learn, and lots of bad mistakes that I made. So working with the BDC was the very first consulting group that we worked with that kind of helped us look at our brand and started to connect us with partners, because I did not have a network. So I would say, get the BDC is a great resource. And then with that, they actually connected us to the Trade Accelerator program. And we went through that Trade Accelerator program where we really looked at our performance in Canada, our market penetration in Canada, and look at, set priorities on countries that we wanted to look into and assessing the requirement. Like Gavin said, looking at the regulatory requirements, they all change from country to country. Like Europe, especially with skincare, they're very, very detailed, whereas the US is slightly different. They're starting now to be. And then, of course, that financial readiness as well. So the TAP program, the Trade Accelerator program, does such a good job where they bring all these partners into one table where you have the banks there, you have EDC there, you have the Trade Commissioner Office. We utilize the Trade Commissioner Office a lot. They're like the Bible, because they will do some initial market research for you. They will connect you. And if you're in country, they will also come to meetings with you, which of course builds credibility. They're able to kind of wave the Canadian flag, and you are, and they will be able to take, especially countries where there's potential corruption. So they help you with that. So I would say that market research, actually for us, we had to take a step back. We were ready to go full blown in 2019, but we had to kind of take a step back and say we had lots of holes in Canada. Actually, that's when I wrote on my wall that we needed to get into Costco. So putting that up there, and then I didn't know anyone. I'm like, okay, what do we need to do to get there? We put on the wall that we need to get into the Bay. What do we need to do there? So we kind of build our local market capability before we started looking outside as well. Oftentimes it's easy to say, let's go to the US because same language. But then, like I said, there are countries that, like African countries, that are ready. They love the Canadian brand. So that's kind of what has been part of our journey. And then now we're back and we're starting to look into the US again.
Absolutely. And the program that you mentioned there, that the Trade Accelerator program, I've shared that into the chat there. But yeah, it's interesting that a lot of people that I speak with who aren't in Canada, there's a lot of trust in Canadian brands these days. So I'm finding a lot of people are trying to source them, or if they see that there's a Canadian brand, they're happy to support them. So there's something about the Canadian brand that people around the world are building more and more trust to. Monique, from the other side of things, I think one of the services you're providing is that go-to-market strategy that you mentioned earlier. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, what that entails, and how you're helping entrepreneurs to get onto shelves?
Sure. So having been a retail buyer, I know what buyers are looking for when it comes to newness. And while what you're looking for changes on a regular basis, there is a certain formula, if you will, that buyers are often looking for when they're bringing in new brands. And so I help brands by helping them to understand how to look at the categories that they're playing in and understand the best role that they have for the retailer. To Gavin's point earlier, and I saw a comment in the chat, it's an amazing thing to have a product that can be used for 5 years. It's great for the environment. It's great for people. Everyone wins. However, little asterisk for a retailer, something that has a 5-year retention in terms of customers might have a slow turn. And so figuring out what that right go-to-market strategy is, or how to sell that into a retailer, or what the placement might be, or those things are conversations that I have with the brands that I work with, so that there is an understanding of how is this going to work at retail? Who are the right retailers for us to partner with? And then what does the pricing need to be if we are going to market with said retailers? So it's really laying out the channel strategy, channels being, are we going direct to consumer? That's an obvious yes these days. From there, are we building out on Amazon? Are we going to different retailers? Are we staying boutique and keeping things small? Do we want to go to some of these mass retailers? What does that look like? And then I also provide some general guidelines around marketing requirements. I'm not on the execution side for marketing, but I do provide the overview outline of you need to have social media, you need to have brand awareness, email marketing campaigns, really building your community, because these are the things that retailers are working with. And it's all a part of building really that fan base and that loyalty, so that once you get to retail, you know that there is a proof of concept, you know that there's a consumer out there who wants your product and that they're willing to buy it in mass. Because that's, I think, one key difference in mass retail that is a little bit different from DTC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, Monique. And going back to going through that process of assessing what you need to export, Gavin and Evelyne, when you did then start exporting, were there any specific challenges that you faced? I'm sure there were, but what were these challenges? How did you overcome them? Gavin, maybe I'll go to you first.
I mean, there's dozens of unexpected challenges that come up. Everything from just wanting to find the right fulfillment service. We had boxes that were damaged and things that weren't being shipped properly or delayed and late. So we had customers complaining, so we're losing sales. Then we had like larger global issues. We were exporting to the US during the NAFTA USMCA changeover with the last administration, and so that was there was a lot of confusion with what category we fell in and paying different tariffs and things like that. The US is a great. It's our largest trading partner. It's as if someone said, it's the same language, and it's our neighbor, big market. It's a very litigious country, and so our insurance is quite high by selling in the US. We actually have to provide our US sales figures to our insurance broker every year. So unexpected costs come out from doing it as well. So I mean, there's all sorts of lessons learned that you don't necessarily think about at the beginning. You just see an opportunity, and it still is a good one, and we obviously like still pursue it. It's worth it. It's just it's better to go, I think, slow to understand all the different pieces that are coming versus rush into it and then become overwhelmed with these problems.
Thank you. Yeah, and Evelyne, anything to add to that in terms of the challenges that you might have faced when you were starting to export?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Gavin said. That starting small is so important. It's cheaper to make small mistakes than when you make the large ones. The biggest part for me is you gotta stay on top of those regulatory requirements, especially if it's another language. And better yet, just pay. Don't try to be cheap and do it yourself. Get somebody locally who understands, who is keeping on top of changes, because some of the updates might not be online if you're trying to do it yourself. We've had challenges with labels because there's different label requirements. You think you got it, and then it gets to the port of entry, and it's basically the country is not letting it in because it's not compliant. Secondly, is get a partner. Like I love UPS. Get a partner like UPS already in advance. Negotiate your discounts. They're amazing to work with, because when stuff gets stuck, like I just called my UPS account manager, like, help, can you figure out what's going on? So have that. There's huge, you will save yourself a lot of time because they know, I mean, this is the business that they do on a daily basis. And I'll highly recommend get a reputable ones. Don't, again, try to be cheap and get somebody who does not understand, who has not been in it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Evelyne. I think that goes back to Gavin's point of ensuring that you have enough funds to start your exporting journey, because then you can look into getting the correct and reputable support that you'll need and ensure that everything is correct when it goes out, rather than facing, getting it to that new market and then it's rejected for whatever the reason is. So yeah, that's a fantastic point. Felipe, maybe now is a good time to sort of call on you to speak about the different services that UPS is providing for entrepreneurs, exporting to new markets.
Yeah, in general, we as UPS, we could do almost everything that you need to export. We're a broker, we are an airline, we're a freight forwarder, we are a parcel company. We also have warehouses. Then, as for what we could offer you, I think we could offer you almost anything that you need. The interesting thing, as Evelyne said, is working with a partner. Then what UPS will do, will sit down with you and say, okay, what are you trying to achieve? For example, said, I want to go into US, but I want to have a warehouse there in US and ship from US. Then we're going to work with you and we're going to offer you different researches and solutions to help you with your export journey. In general, if you want to talk in a general way, we offer, basically, when you are exporting, there's 3 kinds of services. When you're going into US, you are going to go normally ground, which is the cheapest option, reliable, but that time in transit is a little longer. For next day orders, going into US, for example, you could go to a 2-day service, or you could go to a next day service. When you're talking about, you could say the same thing for, when you're talking about out of US, you are normally the only option you are going to get for parcels is air shipments. For air shipments, there's 2 different services. One is the fastest one, which is called Express, and the other one is a cheaper service, but a more longer delay on the delivery. That's called Expedite. Then, for example, if you go to Europe, you go with Express, you're going to be there in 2 days. If you go with Expedite in some country, you're going to be there in 3 or 4 days. But like Evelyne said, the best thing to do is to find a partner and work with them. What are you looking to achieve for your expert needs? And that partner will help you navigate through all the different services. There's so many different services and so many different added value solutions that you could use for moving your goods to other countries. That's what I could say in a nutshell. Yes.
Thanks, Felipe. Yeah, like gonna echo exactly what you said. There's so many different services to UPS that are beneficial when you are when you have a physical product that you're sending. Felipe, there's someone in the chat asking if you can put the air shipping companies that you mentioned into the chat, or if you have information on that would be great. Otherwise we can definitely get that link to you.
Yeah.
I think it's Andea.
Yeah, for the air freight, the UPS air freight company is called UPS SCF, Supply Chain Solution. I just try to find the link and put it in the chat, but that's for air freight, yes.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So attendees, we still have about 40 minutes or so with our panel discussion. So if there is anyone that has a question, please feel free to use the raise hand function. And you can ask your question on camera, or you can ask in the Q&A box and I'll ask on your behalf. Until then, I will kind of keep going through our questions that we have drafted out, but please feel free to raise your hand and ask your question. So we've talked a lot about assessing whether you're going, assessing your export readiness, maybe different challenges about getting into those new markets. But I think it's also important to talk about deciding on which markets to go into. So the first question is for Gavin and Evelyne. How did you conduct your market research to determine which markets to enter? And I know, Gavin, you kind of talked about a two-pronged approach of how you export. So Evelyne, I'll go to you first. How did you conduct your market research, and any tools or resources that helped you in this process?
Yeah, just initially mentioned, we kind of started off with the Trade Accelerator program, where we really looked into the market that we were interested in. At that point, we were actually interested in the Chinese market. Really looked at our weaknesses, looked at our strengths, looked at what the opportunities are, what are the potential threats, looked at brands in that market, what are their value proposition, and try to find holes on how we could stand out. Looked at all the regulatory requirements. I mean, in China, for example, for skincare, you have to do animal testing. So at that point, it was a no-go for us, even though there was lots of opportunities for us. We're just like, no, our values as a company don't align to that. However, there's other ways, as we were working through that, there's other ways to sell into China where you can just do their online sales through the channels such as Alibaba. Without being on the shelves. We looked in detail about, trademarking. So IP protection is really, really important, because in China, if you don't have your IP protected, the minute the product gets there, you start having those quarters that will squat on your name, and you're not able to register it. So really looking into that, we got key opinion leaders to test our products and provide feedback, because what works in the cold, dry climate here in Calgary might not be the same product that the Chinese consumers are looking for. So kind of got that small feedback before we slowly started to build. Again, I cannot re-emphasize the importance of partnership. I'm saying it again, getting a local partner that speaks the language, but also speaks English, that is able to, kind of bring that messaging back, whatever the potential customers are asking, and give us that honest feedback has been tremendous, helpful. Working with the Trade Commissioner Office, again, I mean, they save you lots of money, because like with the IP, they can do some initial searches and see if the name has been taken, give you feedback that you need to have your name registered in both English and in Chinese characters. And then also make recommendations to lawyers that you can work with, that that they are trusted. So that was kind of really that has been the starting point. And then any new country that we start looking into, we just start off with the Trade Commissioner Office. They kind of give us that initial insight. And then, of course, connecting with EDC when necessary to make sure that you're getting your protection on insurance. And of course, having your supply chain organized at the same time.
Incredible. Thanks, Evelyne. There are lots of nuggets of information there for people to consider when they're getting into a new market. Gavin, anything to add there to Evelyne's list?
Yeah, well, when we looked at what markets we wanted to go into, I mean, iron deficiency is such a widespread problem. If your country has people who get pregnant or people who menstruate, you probably have iron deficiency. So we believe that we eventually want to be this global company. I mentioned how the NGOs kind of chose the markets that they would bring us into, but from an e-com perspective, what we did was look at the website and see where the traffic was coming from. And we were shipping and fulfilling from Canada and the US. And we had shipping costs become a barrier for Europe, for Japan, and for Australia, where we had a lot of demand, but it would drop off once they got to the shipping option for buying. So kind of tracking the user experience on the website and seeing where you're losing customers, it gave us insight into an area we wanted to address. So then we opened up fulfillment center, like we use fulfillment centers in those markets, so shipping became cheaper, and then now saw growth in sales there. But we also know you can't just carry inventory, all over like Europe and Latin America without having the demand for it. So that's why we chose just a handful of markets to start with, and then we're slowly growing from there, because each one needs translation, VAT or GST tax payments in that country, which is again expensive. I keep coming back to money, but running a business is expensive. But that's how we decided to grow. So tracking our web traffic.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a great way of just seeing where your customers already are. Because to your point, you were selling predominantly online for your own stores, so you already have that data to look at and fall back on for the other different markets you can go to. We have a question in the chat that Monique, I think, might be best answered by you, so I'll read it out for you. So they're wondering, they said, for a company who is just starting, there's already big brands in a similar market. Oh, sorry, the question is gone now. For a company who has just started and there is already big brands in a similar marketplace, what would be the best strategy to go for retail? And what can be the marketing channel to get lots of sell for less marketing costs? Is crowdfunding a good strategy to launch a product like theirs? They are selling edible molding clay for kids.
Yeah, I can tackle that. That sounds like something that would have been in one of the categories that I bought when I was at Target. Modeling clay is super fun. So I would say in terms of the best strategy to go to retail, with something like that, I think you can go with a number of different, excuse me, channels in terms of marketing and getting people to understand who your product is. And the first channel I'm going to reference is social media. Social media is your way to communicate and get information about your brand out there. As you all know, it is the elephant in the room, but that is one of the key ways that small brands, especially independent brands that are strapped for cash, are able to market themselves. Now, whether you decide to leverage paid ads on Instagram or Facebook or leverage influencer partnerships, that is something that you will have to decide based on the budget that you have available and also the strengths and talents of your team. If you have someone that is a marketer on your team that can create content that's fantastic in-house, and maybe they happen to have kids themselves, then that could actually be a fantastic way for you to market your product by showcasing all the different ways that the modeling clay can be used. You know, it's a fun activity that you can craft and then you can eat it. And then it's a fun family day for everyone that's involved. In terms of also just looking at launching at retail, for something like this that is niche, but is also available or something that could apply to a number of different folks, this is where I would encourage you to attend trade shows. That can be a great way for you to get visibility to buying teams and to see if there is interest. For something like crafting, I know the New York Now show is very big on stationery, and that's something that I attended in the past as a buyer for those categories. It can also be a great place for you to connect with actual buying teams. And then I'd list out those retailers. Who are the retailers that might carry this product? And I'd start reaching out and seeing if you have anyone in your network that knows them personally. In some cases, you can get creative and just say, is the email address for Michael's first name dot last name at michaels.com? Because there is, probably a 25% chance that it is. And, you send a cold email, you aren't guaranteed to get success, but with innovation and things that are new, you never know. If you don't reach out, you don't hear back. But if you do, you might hear back and might get some traction. So those are a few things that I would recommend to market your product and then also to connect with retailers.
Fantastic advice. Thank you so much. And yeah, I agree with the, creating your own content as well. I think that's the easiest and probably cheapest way for you to get your brand out there and go to where your I suppose the customers are the parents, right? So yeah, go to where the parents are seeing their content, whether that's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. So yeah, great advice there, Monique. And Monique, I'd love to stay with you if that's okay. In terms of talking about the US market. You've worked in retail for many years in the US market. So are there any factors that entrepreneurs should be considering when they're exporting to the US?
Yeah. So one of the big things that I share with brands when they're talking about, oh, we want to go to market and we want to launch at retail is what track record does that retailer have with launching small or independent brands? And specifically, if you have not seen that retailer have a success story or multiple success stories with small brands, I would tread very lightly. And I say that because, as Gavin has mentioned a couple of times, it's expensive to go to retail. It's an investment. So it's not to say that this isn't necessarily the right move for your business, but know that there are typically upfront costs. There might be slotting fees, new item fees. You're going to definitely make a big investment in inventory to supply that initial inventory, or shipment that's going to be placed on the shelves in addition to those reorders. So one thing that I would say is look and see what retailers are known for partnering with these independent brands. Retailers that have incubators are probably going to be a little bit of a better option. Walmart has an incubator program or accelerator program for small brands. Target has them. Ulta Beauty has them, Sephora has them. I think Ulta's and Sephora's are more so targeting BIPOC owned brands. But still saying that to say they are retailers that are known for working with independent brands, for working with the smaller brands. And the reason why that's important is because it gives you an opportunity for a slower ramp up. So you can kind of get the opportunity to crawl, then walk, then run, as opposed to going to a retailer's shelves and immediately they're saying you didn't hit productivity within the first 3 to 6 months. So we're going to be exiting your brand within less than a year of you being on the shelf. That's the worst thing that can happen. And there are retailers that might do that to you. And so you want to make sure that when you're ready to go, you have you know how to target your market, you know how to, drive traffic, and you're ready to go, and selecting the right retailer is one way to help you do that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Monique. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. And that's great that there's so many different retailers that provide those incubators. I think that's a great opportunity for you to even just build a relationship with them and learn the workings of what it's like to get your product onto the shelves of those people. We also have a question from Mel in the chat. I'm not sure who to point this to, so speakers, I'll let you sort of fight over who wants to answer this, but the question is about selling in the US, nexus and charging tax, as well as Europe, so VAT registration. So I think they're wondering if you've any advice in terms of charging tax in the US, as well as VAT registration in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, and it depends on how much you're selling. It's dependent on the different markets that you're in within the US, for example. We just hire experts because we don't have a tax expert on our team. So we figure out someone else to do it and they tell us how much to pay.
Excellent. Yeah. I think that sounds like something that I think if you reach out to, that's someone's profession to help with, because yeah, it is that tax in general is just very complicated, differs from country to country. If you're going to the States, it's going to differ, or differ state to state. So I think if you have the cash to get someone to help you with that, I think that would probably be the best. We have a question from Jennifer, and Evelyne, perhaps this might be the best question for you. They're asking, for skincare, do retailers want to see a full line, or can there be interest in just a single product that has good customer reviews and interest?
That will vary from retailer to retailer. We launched with Whole Foods. We only had 2 SKUs, but they loved our brand story. They loved the ingredient. They loved the finished, like really finished, the packaging. So I would say that if you have a single product that is serving a purpose, so depending on what it is, it needs to be ready. Then you can look and see who is that, just like Monique mentioned, who is that retailer that is more open. In most cases, most retailers want a full range because, I hear it over and over. Most customers want to buy their package. They want to get their cleanser, their toner, moisturizer all in one. We still don't have a full range, and we've been selling a lot, but it depends on that partnership. And how close you are with them, and explain it. If you have a great product that is really is solving a problem and it's ready to put on the shelf, most stores will be willing. But you also have to make sure that if it's just one single product, how is it going to merchandise on the shelf? You don't want to get lost. So there's a lot of factors to consider to really drive and make sure that it works. For us, when we were having those 2-3 products, I had to be out, doing the demos, connecting with the customers, connecting with, the associates. That way, if somebody's coming and asking, oh, I'm looking for a face oil, even if I had only 2, the associates will take them to my product. So relationships play a key role. And I'll be happy to talk to you outside of this as well.
Thanks, Evelyne. And I think that Jennifer has asked a follow-up question to you. What did the retailers want to see from your brand? And what do you mean by retailer ready? How did you find your retailers?
So in terms of retail already, I went to a lot of trade shows. So here in Canada, there's the Canadian Health Foods Association. It happens in Vancouver. There's one happening right now, and another one happens in Toronto in September. So I went to a lot of trade shows and connected, because these are buyer specific. You know, you have your products there and the buyers are walking in. The retailers are walking in and they're really looking for new brands. In the US, there's the Indie Beauty Expo that is in New York, LA, and I think now they're doing it in the UK and Germany as well. So going to those trade shows, you'll gather a lot of information, the perception, or even just walking. You don't even have to exhibit, just walking, you'll be able, you don't know who you get in the bathroom and get to chat with them. And of course, there's all the conferences that the smaller conferences within the trade show where you get to connect with these buyers and talk to them. And if you have your products in your purse, you get to show them and see what comments they get. In terms of readiness, this is what I'm talking about. You have your packaging ready. In Canada, it needs to be bilingual, French and English. You have your barcodes from GS1 that are scannable. Your ingredients, you're using the inky names. So these are all the things that go in play. If the bottles, they're in the right bottles and everything. That this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about readiness. So this is what the buyers are going to look at. But more importantly, you truly understand your target customer and, you're solving that problem. And the retailers can see, because sometimes what we sell direct to consumer is different than what the retailers are selling more of. So it's understanding that market and making sure that all of that is ready. Or pricing, your pricing strategy. What does that look like? Where do you fit in? Because if you're going to go with a distributor, the distributors want their margin. The retailers also need to have their margin, and you also need to make profit. So this is what I'm talking about when we talk about that readiness. Yeah, the promos. So there's a lot of promos that happen. Do you have a market for promos so that you can support and build the brand awareness of your brand when you get to the retailers?
Thank you so much, Evelyne. Jennifer, I hope that that answered your questions. But yeah, thank you so much for taking those questions on, Evelyne. Appreciate it. And we have another question in the chat from James, and they're asking any advice on going to market with fresh food products to retail, smaller and larger retailers. Monique, Gavin, perhaps either of you would like to answer that question.
Sure, I can tackle it. I mean, I think very similar. I would look at the track record of the retailer in partnering with small brands. So thinking about food retailers specifically in the US, some that come to mind include, of course, a Whole Foods Market. I think they're very much known for partnering with small brands and really giving them a great platform to grow. But I also think about retailers like Wegmans and even Kroger. Kroger, who is huge, but are doing their best to build out localization strategies so that they have products that are going to be relevant to the customers that are in those markets. And in many cases, those customers have specific cultural needs, food, which does extend to food needs. And so if there are ways for you to, again, to what Evelyne was saying, understanding your consumer, understanding who your target consumer is, that then gives you a better opportunity when you approach the retailer to say, hey, Like I have a friend who has an amazing custard family recipe that he developed. And so he's saying this custard is unlike anything else that you've ever tasted. It's better than pudding. It's better than these other custards that you have. And so this is something that is going to work really well in markets where you're seeing, you know, a lot of desserts. We know that that's something that's very popular in the African American culture, or we know that that's something that's very popular in the South. Specifically here in the US. So those are some key markets that we think would be great for this product. And you can already approach the retailer with this kind of, we call it segmentation, the segmented mindset, so that you are then able to still start off with a small number of stores, crawl, walk, run, but also still get to test your product in the market, test it with your best customers, and then you can also learn and reiterate from there. So again, I don't know that it's necessarily smaller or larger retailer as much as it is finding the right retailer where you know your customer is there. Don't go to Kroger if you know that you're pricing something that's super premium. I wouldn't go there first. I would go to a retailer that is better known for having premium pricing, like a Whole Foods, like a Wegmans. So these are the places where everything kind of comes into play. What's your pricing? Who's your target consumer? Where is the retailer going to fit on those kind of three prongs? You know, how does it all come together based on your brand being at the center?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Monique. James, I hope that answers your question. And keep these questions coming in as well. These are all great, and I think there's, you know, they're applicable to a lot of the people in the room as well. So yeah, add them into the chat. You can also raise your hand and come on camera to ask the question as well. All right, so I'd love to talk a little bit about regulatory and compliance factors that entrepreneurs might need to be aware of. So Gavin and Evelyne, what were some of these factors for you? I think you've already sort of mentioned them briefly earlier, but I would love to kind of expand a little bit more on what you needed to be aware of when you were exporting to these different markets, and how possibly they differed from country to country. Gavin, maybe I can go to you first.
Sure. So our product it's been regulated in different categories globally, and so it has been quite challenging in certain countries to get it available for sale, because in some it's classified as a supplement or a food and drug, and in some it's not. And because there isn't that consistency, you're having to work with different ministries, whether it's health or the food ministry. I would TCS, the Trade Commission Service, was already kind of mentioned before, but they are incredible, and especially if they do have a presence on the ground. They have gone to meetings with us or helped facilitate meetings within government, or found local representatives who can help assist us with those regulatory discussions. Whenever I travel, I will always go to the TCS office and just introduce myself, explain what our product is and what I'm doing in that country. They're always willing to meet. So I mean, TCS is a great resource that we pay for in our taxes, and so I highly recommend you use it. And yeah, I just think it's important to understand what the legal requirements are, because what you don't want to have happen is you're selling your product and then a ministry says, well, you're not following this set of rules, then you have to have it pulled, because then you're responsible for pulling all the inventory back. It's obviously a huge loss, and it can actually, I mean, really harm the business. Yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Mm-hmm. And I think look, sort of sense what you're saying is you know, leaning into the resources that are available in terms of hiring someone to look after those sort of regulatory and compliance pieces on your behalf.
Yeah, I mean, we're not experts. We were just a small business, not understanding what the like Ugandan health ministries would need, and so we hire someone there who can help facilitate that, and then TCS would make this introduction.
Fantastic, great. And Evelyne, how about you? What I know you mentioned the Chinese market in terms of needing to test on animals, which then you decided not to really go through that because it went against your company's values. Were there any other compliance or regulations for other markets that you know, posed a difficulty to exporting?
Yeah, so, for example, looking into the EU market, they have certain ingredients that we in Canada, US that are allowed. So you also have to understand that. They also have challenge tests that have to be done that we do not have to do here in Canada. I mean, in Canada, you just need to basically notify Health Canada, whereas before you can start selling in Europe, you have to have your samples tested. You need to have all your stability testing. You have to have your microbials testing. So this is really, really important to know, because you just don't want to go through the process and then realize that, oh, you haven't gotten your challenge test done. You also need to have a responsible person. So when you're doing your registration of your product, so who is that partner that is going to be, and they have to reside in the region. So you have to make sure who is that partner, and it cannot just be anyone, somebody who's going to be able to sign off on your product, because they're basically taking that responsibility. So this is where, again, a good distributor that you have a relationship with, a good lawyer that is willing to kind of take on that responsibility on your behalf. Kenya, it has its own set of regulatory requirements on how, especially the product are manufactured here and what you need to have on the label. So you need to be able to have distributed by this person right on the label and be able to get the stickers. They also have their own set of testing that needs to be done that is different than what we do. So these are really the big ones for us on the skincare side, and also claims. In the US, you can see moisturizers from the US in healing the skin. In Canada, we can't say that, and other parts of the world, they also have their set of what you can say, what you cannot say. Sometimes little words, which you think it's just like, for example, hair growth. You see hair growth serums everywhere, but in some countries, you cannot claim that unless you have data to show that you've done all your clinical testing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So many things to take into consideration, even in change of small pieces of language on the product. Monique, I mean, sort of same question, but what would be compliances or regulations that specific retailers might have for these small brands that they'd need to comply with?
Most of the compliance regulations that I can think of are more so related to, especially for the big retailers, being EDI compliant. So you have to be able to send things via this electronic data interchange. And so for many small brands, that's one of those things that you either have the capability for or you don't. I think mentioned many times here is that you can't do everything in-house. And for some things, you just want to pay an expert, and that is going to be the most cost-efficient way for you to do it correctly versus trying to learn how to do it yourself or hire someone to do it in-house. And so that's something that's required. I would say the US is probably the most lenient in terms of ingredients and all of those things. So chances are, if you're hitting the standards for certainly Europe, but even definitely Canada, you likely can meet whatever regulatory requirements are happening in the US. I know something specific to beauty is something called MOCRA. This is a new act that is enhancing or increasing the regulatory requirements for beauty products specifically sold in the US. That's MOCRA. If you Google it, you'll see what it's about. But MOCRA was passed in 2022, but they continue, the bill makers continue to kind of kick back the date when it will be actually enforced. So last time I checked, it still was kicked back again. And so it is not in effect, but it is something that should be on your radar if you are looking to launch in the US, and knowing that those are going to be some additional regulatory requirements if you are looking to launch in the US.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And we've just gotten a question pointed at you, Gavin, actually. So the question's from Jennifer. They're wondering, how did you quantify the interest from other countries at your online store to justify creating distribution there? Very good question, actually. I'm very curious as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we used two different approaches. So one, I think that sparked the question was we were just getting emails or social media posts, like comments on our ads saying, I live in France, I live in Australia, shipping is ridiculous. Is there anything you can do about that? And so we started thinking, what is there? And how this is happening to other people. So then when you look at the analytics for the website, we could see where traffic was coming from and then compare that to where sales were converting from. So if 10% of our traffic was coming from Australia, but under 1% of sales were coming from Australia, we could understand there was a disconnect there. So that's how we made that decision. And it was Australia, Japan, France, Germany, like Europe. So yeah, Australia.
Okay. And I think the follow-up is, has it been worth it? Have you sort of seen a growth in those markets?
It definitely has been worth it. One of the things that we didn't fully understand was how we really need specified marketing for each, especially when you think about translation for, like, let's use Europe, for example. So very diverse needs from a language perspective. And then the VAT kind of tax, not understanding what was going to come from that. It's still really good, but I think it's been a lot slower just because we didn't have the marketing budget needed to really ramp it up. And we have now a major investor, Danone Communities, who are based out of Paris, and they're pushing for us to have more presence in France because they believe it's really underutilized. So we're just trying to find some marketing dollars to grow that. So I think it's one of the points I was going to make before, actually, about when we entered China is when you think about your expansion plan and your export plan, you can have your core marketing dollars that are to build your main brand, which would be North America, but you really have to have dedicated dollars for each of the markets because it's just so unique. You can't have such a broad funnel and expect to get everything. So if you are going into specialized markets, you have to make sure you have that marketing ability, or else you're not going to have that to drive the sales. And that is from an e-com perspective. I'm sure retail is a bit different. That's my experience from e-com.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And sorry, I can't remember. Was it Jennifer? Jennifer, I hope that answered your question. And Mel, apologies. I see that you had a question earlier. So let me just go back to that so we can get to it for you. Mel, you're wondering what do buyers look for when presenting a product? And Monique, perhaps you're the best person to put that towards.
Yeah, so in general, buyers are owners of their business. So they are looking for you to help them. Hold on. Sorry, my youngest daughter just popped in for a second. But they're looking for you to help them to grow their overall business. So if you think about what can you offer and bring to the category so that you can help them to ultimately gain market share and grow. And so in some cases, that's going to be very specific. It might be tied to a broader corporate strategy. So that might tie to sustainability, clean ingredients. It might tie to social impact. It all varies, I would say, again, based on the retailer. But I typically like to look at what are some of the new products that launched. And I mean, I'm a nerd. This is also what I do. But I then go back and say, I wonder why they decided to bring this brand in. What customer is this serving? Or what community is this serving? What is the product's angle, or what new things are they offering that are different or differentiated? I know one thing that's been really big at Ulta most recently are derm recommended brands. They did a lot around derm recommended brands, specifically in skincare. And then I noticed that one of the brands that had a body care option, Amlactin, that launched this year, was also derm back. So sometimes you can piggyback off of these bigger initiatives that the retailers are leaning into and leverage that to say, well, this might be my point of differentiation, or this might be a way that we can appeal to the retailer and to the things that are important to them right now. And I'd say, like, listening to earnings calls, And then reading anytime they do put press releases out about what their focuses are, those are good ways to have an understanding of what are those retailers' priorities to understand how you might fit in.
Thanks so much, Monique. Very comprehensive answer. Thank you, Mel. I hope that answers your question. And I think, Mel, did you have a follow-up question as well? So,
Yes.
oh yes, regulation. So, and sorry to lean on you again, Monique, but perhaps this would go with you as well. Do regulations change when selling from Canada to US between B2B or B2C?
So in terms of regulations, I'll say that's not my my specific area of expertise. So I can only speak very generally around that. So I don't know specifically what those changes might be if you are coming into the US. I think that's where like working with whoever you choose for exporting, making sure that they know what those requirements are so that you know that they're going to make sure that you're ready to go. And if there are any requirements that are specific to the US, you have those things available. But I can't answer specifics as that's not my specialty. But I know that there are people that are out there that would probably be able to rattle them off very quickly.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Monique. And yet again, thank you, Mel, for your questions. All right, we have about 4 minutes left of our panel discussion before we head into our breakout rooms. So if there is anyone that has a specific question that they'd like answered, please raise your hand, put it into the chat, and we'll do our best to get to it before we go into those rooms. And if there isn't, I'll look at my list for one more question to feed to the speakers. I'll just make sure no one has put it up. All right, and I do encourage people to stay around for the breakout rooms as well. Really great opportunity to meet each other. Connect with entrepreneurs that are also working within this space, as well as getting to speak one-on-one with the speakers as well. The speakers will also be put into these rooms. So a really great opportunity to meet some folks. All right, Jennifer, thank you so much for another question. And I think we'll use this as our closeout question for the discussion. So Jennifer is asking, when is it worth the cost to work with a distributor? If Gavin or Evelyne can share about any personal experiences with working with distributor.
I'm happy to tell two quick things. Two quick. One is we worked with a distributor to sell in the US on Amazon because they promised big things. And even though the volumes were okay because it was distributor pricing, we actually found we were losing more money than we thought we could be making. So we ended that relationship. We started taking back sales from Amazon. And because we're selling our product, we're passionate about it, whereas they're selling 100. And we were learning what was going to work, and we actually were able to double our sales, and we were maintaining all of the profit margin. So that was an example where we felt we were better positioned to do it than a distributor. But we do have distributors in Peru, in the UAE, and in East Africa, because we don't have boots on the ground, we don't speak the language, and so it's really difficult for us to try and facilitate business internationally without having a presence there. And so in areas where we just felt we couldn't do it, but there was a demand, then we worked with a distributor and felt it was worth it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gavin. Evelyne, do you have anything to add to that question around is it worth the cost of working with the distributor?
You know, I will agree with what Gavin said, that sometimes having a distributor, because they have so many brands that they're working with, they might not pay attention to your specific brand. The experience that we've had, yeah, we've gotten presence with our distributor, but then when it comes to really managing and growing the relationship, it's really accounts that we manage. So similarly, we've had to just kind of take back some of those accounts and manage them ourselves. I like the idea of having a broker. For example, with Costco, we have a broker. that kind of knows the ins and outs and kind of manages that relationship, and it's just a win-win. You know, they open the account, we're working together, as opposed to a distributor where you don't know what's really is going on as much, and then of course the margins are much lower. But in other countries where, like in China, we do sell like through whatever the offshore, you know, online, so to say, from the e-commerce. We have a distributor that we work with that, again, understands the language and can just kind of navigate and get the products into the hands of the customers. Yeah, so the margins, you have to really look and account for them in your pricing strategy, because if not, you'll be the only one not making money.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it really sounds like it's a beneficial investment when you're going into a market that you perhaps don't have the language for, or also maybe there's cultural differences. Really having someone, or yeah, like Gavin said, you don't have boots on the ground, having that that representation or presence will really help you. Alrighty, so I don't want to dig too far into the networking breakout session time.